So, as we jump into tonight, we're going to talk a lot about goals, a lot about vision, and what it's going to take to get us to execute on those goals. So, that's really what I want us to keep in mind. And I also want to level set with everyone and identify just one big piece of the money conversation that I think we neglect. So, in reframing what money is not good or bad. We as humans attach this meaning of good and bad to people with money, to actions taken with money, to feeling that we're not enough with money, and we want to detach ourselves from money, but we also want to understand that money in and of itself is not good or bad. We created these stories around money saying that it was good or bad. So when we start to look at money as a tool, we are able to create time freedom. We are able to create people freedom, energy freedom, the freedom that we actually want. We don't actually want money per se, we want what money gives us. So let's start to rethink how we use money as a tool to really dive into what it can create for us. So that's what we're going to do here tonight. Super excited to dive into that. If you are excited as well to dive into your goals, to really start to rethink what that can look like for your life, type a yes in the chat box and we are going to jump in here. For those of you who don't know me, there are a few of you I don't know. I am the founder of Financial Fitness Unleashed. I have been in financial planning for over 15 years and I love helping women. And if you get to know me, you know I won't shut up about it. I will always be top of mind for me. I will always be talking about it. And I will unapologetically just be in the thick of it with you in receiving all the money and creating abundance in your life and tapping into your gifts and making sure that you're creating that for yourself. So that is my passion. That is what I'm here to accomplish. And I want to be clear on why that is, because it's not really the money we're creating for those individuals and for those women. It's actually about what they get to give back to the world. So when we start to shift our mindset around money and what we can redirect our wealth to in our purpose, we're creating this purpose and we're attaching an ability to create wealth around it so that we can redirect that money to that purpose. So it's really a much bigger game that we're playing. It's not just about loading ourselves up, but it's really allowing ourselves to redirect wealth into creating a better world around us, whatever our passion is within the world. So while we jump in here, I always like to set an intention. Awesome, we have some more people joining. Feel free to chat your name in the box, say hello. I always like to set an intention. So my intention tonight with all of you ladies is to simplify. This is one of my gifts. I love translating money and the conversation around money to make it simple. So there are a lot of complicated things out in the financial services industry, and it is intentionally complicated so that you go buy products and services and all these things. My intention is to simplify a lot of that. So as we work through this, I do want you to ask questions. With the exercises, I will try and take a look at your questions as we go. If you have maybe irrelevant questions to the exercise at hand, keep them for the end and we will have a Q&A section. But as we simplify this conversation around money, my intention is to simply make it easy and allow it to be easy and simple for you. So I do want you to set an intention as well. So if you want to just share one word in the chat box, what is your intention for the next 45 minutes to an hour? And let's share this experience together. All right, with that, we have a lot on the agenda. The agenda is going to be packed here with vision exercise first. We're going to talk a little bit about how purpose ties into that. We're going to get into the meat of it with goals and execution and what that gets to look like. And the reason why I start with vision is very important. So I want to talk about why that is. When we talk about vision and what vision can create in our lives, I know we're talking really big picture, but if we don't have a big vision, we're not going to accomplish the financial goals that we want to accomplish, because we're not attaching it to anything bigger than just a dollar amount or just paying off this debt or just doing this or that. So we'll dive into that and the purpose around that and the goals and the execution. We'll get into some of the program offerings within Financial Fitness Unleashed, and then we'll do some Q&A. With that, logistically, there are a few things I just want to make you aware of. So you will receive a replay after this session. If you need to go back and watch it again, pause it, you can totally review everything we're going to talk about here today. We're going to go through exercises I mentioned. There are some questions you're going to want to write down and probably go back to, so get a pen and paper. Let me see, I believe there was a file I tried to add. Oh, didn't add, so let me try it again. Worksheet, see if it adds this time, and hopefully it will pop up here. Okay, while that's loading, we'll continue on. There's a worksheet I'm going to add in, and then, like I said, ask questions along the way and just really dive into what it is that you want this next year specifically to look like. While this worksheet is loading, question, how many of you have ever created a vision or a vision statement for your life before? At any point, maybe it's a vision board. I know I've done that a few times, but how many of you have actually done that kind of work before? And as you are dropping that in the chat box, I am sharing a 2021 worksheet. So let me know once you can see it on your end. It says it's sharing. Let's make sure it shows up in the chat. Oh, maybe it's showing up, maybe it's not. Okay, we're going to keep moving on. It is thinking about it. So you should be able to, in I believe the file section, see a 2021 worksheet. So if it doesn't come through, let me know and I can send it to everyone afterwards. Okay, so with that, there are a few things that I want to talk about before we get into our vision exercise. And something I came up with, the 3 Ps, really in an endeavor to expand your mindset, because everything that we do is very present in the moment, what we believe is possible for right now, here today. So when we talk about big goals, big dreams, what it is that we want to cause and create, sometimes we tend to have a struggle with getting to that expansiveness. So we want to start with what is impossible, really, and that's the I, which isn't a 3P, but what's impossible? Okay, let's narrow it down to what is possible. What do we could potentially see as possible for our lives? And then we start asking ourselves questions around, okay, how can I make this a reality? Most people stop right there. Most people stop with possibility. They're like, well, that's a dream. That'd be really nice to have or attain or whatever, but you know, I don't even know how I can make that happen. I can't make that happen. And that's where it ends, because the question after that dreaming impossibility is, I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. And that's where their mindset goes versus, okay, well, if I just sit here and dream for a moment and just allow myself to be in it, the question really is, well, how can I do this? And so if you can shift your mindset with just that one difference in a question, now you're talking about probability. How could I make this a reality? Narrowing down my focus. How could I make what I think might be possible probable? And starting to set some maybe realistic expectations around it. And then once you start to kind of play in that space, now you can really start to see like, okay, well, maybe I can't do this necessarily in a year, but I could do it in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And now you start diving into how to make it become present in your world. So bringing it to your present moment, because you're feeling inspired to take that possibility and bring it down to a narrower focus. So vision can be very scary. Vision can be uncomfortable. It creates uncertainty in our lives, but it can be so powerful in aligning yourself with your vision, because that's where you get to be inspired. That's where you get to live in joy every single day and really tap into what that could look like. And that's what we're going to do here today. So with that, let's see, we are going to just for a moment talk through vision, and then we'll get into our vision exercise. So as we work through the vision exercise in particular, I want you to just know that you're not alone. There's 78% of people who are not happy with the work that they do, for example. There's a Gallup survey out about it. People aren't feeling empowered. They aren't feeling inspired by the work that they do. 78%. So if 78% of people are walking around feeling that way and they do that for 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day, I can only imagine how they feel walking home and creating that same type of uninspired environment around them for the rest of the day. So that's why I know it's challenging to move out of this. So I acknowledge that, and I acknowledge you for being here to start to transition yourself out of that, and know that it's not going to happen overnight. It's not kind of this magical moment. It's a decision that you make, and it's a decision to move forward, but you are literally going against the grain, because 78% of the world out there has been in that hypnotic state of not caring, not feeling great about what they do every day, and they're just in the thick of it. So getting unstuck and taking those first steps are the most challenging of them all. Once you get past that, that's actually where it begins to get easier. And so that's a lot of what I help clients through, but really just being able to allow yourself to be in that space, know where you stand in that, and then take steps to move forward. So if you get anything out of today, it's staying connected with this vision that we create every single day, finding your joy, being in your joy. And if you recognize that you're not in your joy, and if you are part of the 78%, which again, it's a lot of people, know that it's okay, and know that you get to make the decision to change that. And it could take some time. So with that, we are going to jump in to our vision exercise. So with that, I want to just drop in and take a moment to really imagine a bigger world for yourself, for your family, for what it is that you want to create. And depending on your learning style, if you are more of an auditory learner, then I would probably close your eyes and really experience this from a hearing perspective. If you are more of a writer or kinesthetic learner, that's how I am. I like to write things down. I'm a visual learner. So you can take notes during this kind of imagination journey. And whatever suits you best, close your eyes if you wish, keep them open, whatever makes the most sense. So as we walk through this, I'm going to position some questions for you to just play with and imagine and create your own journey with. And at the end, we're going to journal about it as well. So even if you are closing your eyes and not journaling, we are going to circle back around and journal regardless. So take a deep breath in. Let it out. Awesome. We are going to get super, super detailed. So we are going to dream big. We're going to dream so, so big. Let yourself go to la la land. Get out of your comfort zone. We get to dream big about what's possible. To be in this dream world, we're going to create some new things. You're going to imagine it's 10 years from now. And I want to think about how old you are. How old are you in 10 years? 10 years is a long ways out. So you're going to dig deep into what you really want. What do you really want that you might not tell anyone else? What are your truest heart desires? All right, so you're 10 years out. Let's think through, how old are you? Not what year it is, not what anything else is, just how old are you? Do you look the same? Do you feel the same? Do you feel vibrant? Do you feel joyful? Are you excited in your life 10 years from now? I want you to imagine the home that you live in. What color is it? What does it feel like to be in your home? Has anything changed in the last 10 years? Has anything changed about yourself, your family, who's around you? What about your lifestyle? Has anything changed with your lifestyle? Are you still hanging out with the same crowd? Or do you typically add new friends throughout the seasons of your life? What are you doing for work 10 years from now? Do you feel valued? Do you enjoy the work that you're doing? And why do you enjoy it or not enjoy it? Do you feel like 10 years from now you're going to serve a purpose in the world? Are you going to be tapped in? Do you feel like you're living, breathing in joy every single day and adding value to the world around you? So if you could be doing anything for work, anything you want, regardless of money, what would you want to be doing in 10 years? Have you learned any new skills? What are you most excited about 10 years from now? The biggest thing that you're excited about? Do you have children? Are they grown? What are they doing 10 years from now? What about your spouse, partner? Do you have one in 10 years? Do you not have one? What are they up to? What lights you up about having them in your world? You're in dreamland right now. And 10 years from now, you've made more money than you have ever made before in your life. How much money is in your bank account? Do you feel good about what you've created financially? Do you feel secure in what you created financially 10 years from now? Do you feel confident that it will last? How much money is in your investments or in your real estate? Have you created passive income for yourself? What does your spiritual life look like in 10 years? Have you grown intellectually and spiritually? Do you feel like you're leading a purposeful life overall? Are you feeling fulfilled? Do you feel like there is so much more to dive into with life? Do you feel like you have everything your heart desires 10 years from now? Is there anything missing? What's missing if anything's missing? Why is it missing? Hmm. All right, that feels good. You did so good. Can't wait to imagine more of your life. All right, you can open your eyes if you closed your eyes. Take a deep breath. We are complete. So now I want you to take, I'm going to do 2 minutes on a timer. Take 2 minutes and you're going to journal. So you can journal about whatever's coming up for you. This is just a prompting question, but take a moment and journal what action steps you get to create so that you can have this life you just imagined. And I would also encourage you to take some time to write down what you imagined if you haven't done that or weren't doing that during the exercise. We're just going to take 2 minutes to do that. There's an element to vision boarding, to imagining different things in your life. And the reason why we do this is because it allows us, as I mentioned before, to really take a step into expanding more in our lives. And if you've ever done meditation or any type of neuroscience work, what I love about it is there's science behind it. So when we start to really tap into what's possible, we're creating new lines of communication in our brain to accept and identify new opportunities. And what a lot of times happens, especially kind of with that 78% that I mentioned earlier, is we aren't identifying the opportunities that exist potentially right in front of us because we're simply not seeing them, we're not acknowledging them. We are constantly creating pathways of what we're not seeing, and we don't have opportunities, and this isn't working, and whatever that kind of typical traditional pathway is that we've already created from whatever reasoning we've decided on. So that's why we do these vision exercises, is to expand us into what is possible, what opportunities could exist, and really work on creating new pathways. And if you think of a true path, like in the forest, if it's the first time you've gone down a path, it might be really hard. There's a lot of brush in the way. There's a lot of things in the way. It's not actually a path yet because you've never walked down it before. So the first time is the hardest time. Then you walk back down the path and it's like, okay, well, at least I can kind of see where I walked the first time. So I'm walking back and it still is a lot that I have to push over and move out of my way and make it a lot easier and more effortless to walk through. But the next time you come to that path, it's easier and easier and easier. And what you are really trying to get out of is the unstuckness that you created in the other pathways you've already created in your mind, and the self-talk and the self-doubt and the lack of confidence. Like, you have very strong pathways already created in that direction. So it is going to have to be a present decision that you make every single time for a while to shift into something different. And if you've already put in the work to do a lot of this, that's even better, because now you get to expand more, even further, into what is possible. So the more and more you do this, the more you can identify what's possible and how you get to step into abundance and wealth building and really take a stand for yourself and what that gets to look like, and do so in an unapologetic manner. So what I want to talk next about is really from that vision part of the workshop, identifying what your vision was, who do you get to be, what do you get to have, what do you get to do. These are really important questions that you'll want to write down to take note of for later when you journal, because the more and more you can sit with your vision, the more and more clear you will get with it. And with a lot of my clients, I work through clarity exercises, because being clear on something is important to know where you get to go next. If you don't know where you are, how are you going to know where you want to go, and how are you going to know how to get there if you're not clear on a lot of the vision types of journeys that you get to take yourself down? So with that, I want to talk a little bit about purpose, and I'm curious to know from all of you, how many of you have ever created a purpose mantra? Basically anything that states, like, a lot of people tell you to put one on your mirror, like this is the purpose for your life, or sometimes they come in the form of affirmations, but I want to make this specific to you. Purpose mantra is really like, I get to empower millions of women around the world to live out confidently in their lives and build the lifestyle that they want to create, living in their purpose. Like that is my purpose mantra. That is what I'm here to cause and create. I am going to do so unapologetically. I have no problem saying that out loud. So a purpose mantra is that, boom, that one statement that you get to create for yourself and what it is that you get to show up as in the world. And it could look like anything. So I'm not going to dive into a lot of purpose statement for tonight's exercises because there's a lot that goes into that, but I do want to make note of it because I think it's important in the next step beyond your vision. Once you get clear on your vision, now you can start to really be super steadfast in your purpose. And some of these questions, and you'll get a copy of the slides at the very end, so don't feel like you have to write them all down, but if you really knew that your purpose is XYZ, if you died tomorrow, what would you actually be out in the world doing? What would you be screaming from the rooftops? And how do you really want to spend your time? So when we ask ourselves these somewhat cliche questions, because I think we feel like, well, I don't even know, or what kind of legacy do I want to leave? Oh my gosh, I don't know. It kind of becomes overwhelming, consuming thought. And if we really attach it to our joy and our why and what it is that we love to do, it actually gets a lot easier because it doesn't have to be massive, influential. It can be super specific and super focused and super intentional. And the more we get traction in that, that's actually where we create expansive, massive impact. And we may not even know that that's possible, right? In those moments of creating that. So that's important to creating a wealth lifestyle. And a lot of wealthy people will talk about, when they decided to lead a purpose-driven life, that's when it really shifted for them. So the more we can focus on those things, the easier it will actually be to meet your goals. So that's why I'm bringing it up. So with that, we're gonna kind of talk through my favorite part, the good parts here, as far as diving into goal setting and really expanding what goal setting could look like. So I know for myself, I don't know if this is true for everyone else, but I typically create goals around two dynamics, my personal life and my professional life. And I don't really think much beyond that until I did some goal setting, like deep dives, and read a book on it and really went in the weeds on it. So that's where I'm sharing this from. This is all from a book called The 12-Week Year. And it is a little dry up front, so if you go read it, I would read the second half of the book, the tactical part, the action-oriented part. A lot of the beginning is theory. If you like that, cool. It was just a little hard to get through in the initial phases, but it talks about these 7 different areas that we could potentially really dive into from a goal-setting aspect. So spiritual, with our spouse, that's separated out from family, which I really like and is unique because for Desmond and I, we have date night. We love to create an experience out of life with each other. And I know once we build out a family, we're going to want to separate that as well. So really getting clear on what that gets to look like, what we are both into and experiencing things, and separating that even from our spiritual life. And for me, it's meditation. It's really diving into the inner work that is required for me to show up every single day for the people that I serve. And with community, personally, I just love supporting the homeless population and really helping them shift and shining a light on them on what's possible in kind of the depths of where they're at. Physically, I traditionally will make physical goals and I'm going to work out, I'm going to do this with my nutrition, blah, blah, blah. That ebbs and flows over time as well. And then personal goals of how much I get to read each year, and in business, what's the income that I want to produce for myself? How many people do I get to serve? And and really just making it more well-rounded. So instead of just kind of creating these two dynamics, now we have a more well-rounded approach to what it is that we get to look at from a goal setting perspective. So I want to set the stage for that as we dive into setting at least 1 or 2 goals in today's conversation for all of you. So let me know in the chat if you have set goals in this capacity before, where there's like a lot of different areas, or do you usually set 1 or 2 goals, or how does goal setting usually work for you, and what have you done in the past? Feel free to share that. And what we're going to do specifically as far as the goal setting piece is we're going to walk through some examples here. So depending on, again, kind of what your personality style is, if you're more of an analyzer and you kind of want to sit back and watch and take notes, go for it. If you are more of a controller or a doer or really excited to get into this, that typically is me. So I'll create my own goals and do all the things and how I'm going to create it and make it happen. And some of you might just really be unsure and not clear, and that's okay too. So either way, I would just write out and journal what comes up, what you want to get out of this. Remind yourself of what your intention was when you came here today and get what you can out of it, because there's always the replay. You can always watch it again if it serves you. So with that, I would start with 1 goal. Like if you want to do many, that's totally fine, but start with 1 just so we can walk through the specifics of how to set it up. And then the second part of that, which is even more important, is the execution in that. So from a time perspective, we're probably going to get through 1 example because I'd rather dive super deep in 1 example than go through 2. So I am actually going to do the second example for time's sake. So example 2 is Kelly. Kelly's goal is to save money for a real estate purchase. She wants to buy real estate. It is her second home. It's an investment property. It's $350,000. It's kind of the earmark she wants to create for herself. And in creating this goal for herself, she wants it to be a 1-year goal. So to make that clear, we're creating 1-year goals tonight. And in creating a 1-year goal, we want to actually start to break it down and chunk it down into 12-week periods. So there's a lot that goes into the science behind that, but again, this coming from the 12-week year, I think it's super effective for creating certainty around meeting your goals. So the first kind of questions you want to actually start asking yourself about whatever your goal is what potential obstacles are in the way of getting to that goal? And what could you foresee happening that may not let that work out for you? Because the minute you can start acknowledging the obstacles, you can start asking yourself the 1 question we get to shift into, which is, how do I get to make that possible? Versus, well, these are the obstacles. I can't see this happening. I can't figure out a way to make it work. It's, okay, how do I overcome that obstacle? How do I get this to work for me? How do I get to overcome this? And again, tying it back to the vision, why is this the goal? So Kelly's dream, Kelly's vision is to create a real estate portfolio over time so that she has passive income that allows her to walk away from her job. It allows her to travel the world in the next 10 years. She wants to try and buy a house a year. She doesn't know if it's possible, but she's trying to make it probable. So remember the 3 Ps: possible, probable, present. And she was really driving towards, how do I get to make this happen? So how do I get to make this a reality? And going back to tying it to the vision, how will she feel once it's completed? She'll probably feel awesome because it's part of her strategy for her vision. And the hardest part is how to get there, how to create that. And so when we're looking at the execution part of that and tying it into the goal, when we set goals, and I'm going to assume everyone has done this at some point or another in their lives, or at least heard about it. You set SMART goals, and SMART stands for something. So I'm going to walk through SMART goals and just remind you of what your goals get to look like when you set them. So we talked about the questions. I'm actually going to leave the questions up because I think that's helpful. But SMART goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And I'm going to walk through some more details around that. So why does it need to be like that? SMART goals are specific because if you are not specific enough, if you say, I want to lose weight, or I want to save more money, that's not specific enough. And it's very arbitrary. So that's why I want to get specific. That one I feel like is pretty straightforward. But what allows you to dive deeper in that is who you may need to consider to make sure that that gets completed, right? If you have a significant other and it involves both of you saving more, both of you engaging in this endeavor, you want to get them on board with that. The measurable section is really from an execution standpoint. How are you measuring your journey to get there? And so we'll talk about that in execution. Achievable. Is this even a realistic goal? So for Kelly, if the obstacle is, well, I have to save a certain amount, I have to save $25,000 a quarter, and I make $250,000 a year. That's pretty stretchy on top of other savings or on top of other spending. Maybe it's possible, but it's very possible also that an emergency comes up too, right? So knowing that that could be an obstacle, is there a way for her to start to make plans to overcome it before it even becomes an issue? And from a relevance standpoint in the SMART goals, focusing on something that makes sense to the broader vision. So that's taking it back out to vision again, right? Are we making arbitrary goals that we don't really care about? Because if we don't care about them, then why are we making them goals? Or maybe we care about them, but we care about them for the wrong reasons. That's probably more realistic for many of us, is we made a goal because we're supposed to make a goal. We made a goal because someone else told us that that would be a good idea to do it, or because in the world, this goal makes the most sense for us in our lives at this point in time. One second. So the goal of setting goals is to actually make them relevant to you, to your life, to where you're at in your life, and specific to your financial wellness journey. It's understanding what it is you get to cause and create now in this next year and create momentum around that. Because the faster you can get into a momentum stage, the more you can cause and create, and the more you can expand what that looks like over time. And then the last one being time bound. So anyone can set goals, but if you're not setting realistic time frames around it and not achieving it, you're going to get down on yourself. You're not going to feel empowered. It's really hard to have grace with yourself when you didn't set realistic expectations to begin with. So be honest, be real with yourself, have the courage to do that and make realistic expectations around the time frames. All right, with that, we're going to walk into execution. So execution is actually more important than even the plan or the strategy. A lot of us, especially as women, we love to plan, we love to strategize, we love to figure out all the things, but then a lot of times we don't execute. And many people do this, they don't execute. And I wrote down some quotes that I just loved, and I also came up with my own quote, because execution is literally the path to your vision. If you get excited and lit up about your vision and your joy and your why in life and what you're here to do, then you want to know how to execute. You want to be in practice of execution. Because if you're not in practice of execution, you're not going to get to that vision, and it's not going to effectively get you to where you want to go. So I just think it's super important to have some reminders set up around you to kind of hypnotize yourself with what do you get to do to execute, and what does that actually look like? And just know that you will have people surrounding you constantly who are not in execution mode. So they could feel some type of way about you always being in execution mode, and that's okay. As long as you're attaching what you're doing back to your vision, your why is bigger than their judgment. It's bigger than the guilt you might feel about not going to that party or not doing this or that. It's because you're tied more to your vision for your life and what it is that you want to cause and create. Because when you're not tied to that, then yeah, everything and anything is going to get in the way of you getting to execute on your vision if you're not tied to a vision that you actually care about. All right, so this is probably the most important part out of all of this. From an execution phase, you're going to break your goal down into 4 pieces. So for Kelly, to create 12-week years, as they call it in the book, you're actually going to break down your goals. If the goal for Kelly was to actually buy a $350,000 house, she needs 20% down plus renovation costs. So she needs to save $100,000. Sorry, I didn't make that clear earlier. She gets to break that down into 4, which is the 25,000. And then she gets to break that down into weeks for her 12-week year. So Kelly's goal breaks down to $2,083 a week. And when you make these goals, let's use another example of like a fitness goal. You want to, let's say, lose, I don't know how much it would be over a year because I'm breaking it down to 4s, but let's say you want to lose 10 pounds in 12 weeks. And that breaks down to 0.83 pounds a week. Now, wow, okay, that's a lot easier to bite onto. That's a lot easier to manage. So when it feels manageable in a 12-week period, you know that you set a realistic goal that's time-bound that allows you to meet that in that time frame. And the whole purpose of taking that 1-year goal and chunking it down into 4 pieces and then creating 12-week years is so that you can feel all the feels that you would normally feel in a 1-year time frame over 12 months. So if we actually think about what happens over 12 months, what actually happens? We have January, February, March, we've set this goal, we're working towards it, we're excited about it. In April, it starts kind of wearing on us, like, this isn't really that exciting to talk about anymore, like it's kind of becoming a grind. And in May, it's definitely worn off. It's like, yeah, I'm doing that here and there. June, July, August come, it's like, I don't even remember what my goal was. It's summertime, I'm playing. Hey, someone's asking, how's that goal coming along? Oh yeah. I'm doing something with it. You're not doing anything with it. It's fine. They don't need to know that. And then you come along and it's September and now it starts kind of sitting in the back of your mind like, oh yeah, I did set that goal for this year. Like, what do I need to do with that? Start thinking about it. And then October, November, December come and it's like hustle mode. It's like, shit, I told myself I was going to make this goal happen. So what the hell was I doing all year? Urgency starts to set in, and because you really do want to hit that goal, it is a part of your vision, a part of what you want to create, but you didn't give yourself the best execution strategy because you gave yourself an entire year to figure it out, and you could have chunked it down into much more manageable, easier, bite-sized opportunities. So that is the intention behind this execution strategy. So when we start to break it down into 12 weeks, it's similar to those 12 months in a year, and you go through all of those feelings again, right? You every single week, like the first couple of weeks, you're excited about it. The weeks 4 through 8, it kind of like drudges on, disappears, and then weeks 8 through 12, you kind of ramp up your urgency again. But when we create these more manageable commitments in these smaller amounts of time, now we create momentum because now we didn't let a whole year pass by and not meet our goal. You know, maybe we had a few weeks slide here and there, but we're creating these cycles over 4 different times throughout the year. So it's a lot easier to get to the goal because we chunked it down in that capacity. So to take this one layer deeper, we want to identify what are the 2 or 3 things that we need to do every week to get closer to that big goal. And if we've chunked it down, we should have some pretty easy answers around that. And then you take it down even another step further, and it's what's one thing I get to do every single day to get me closer to that goal. And it's a very tactical question, but when you ask yourself that every single day, and if you have a journal practice, it's asking yourself that in your journal. If you've already decided what that one thing gets to be, it makes it so much easier to allow yourself to dive into that. So You want to track this. That is the other magical part about this. You want to have a weekly scorecard to track, monitor, and repeat that process. And when it's not working, when it's not making sense anymore, or when emergencies happen or something's not going how you thought it would go, in a 12-week period, you can pivot. You can allow yourself to say, okay, this isn't working. These are the obstacles I'm facing. How do I get to pivot into maybe doing different tactical things every single day? Or maybe my weeks need to look a little bit different so that it works out better and in my favor, and you can pivot much more quickly versus waiting months on end and getting stuck. And then again, in your mind pattern, you're getting stuck in this other area where it's like, oh, why am I getting stuck? And you keep getting stuck. And that's the conversation happening versus how do I get to overcome this? Okay, let me pivot here. I'm tracking this. The last 3 weeks haven't worked out how I wanted them to. So I get to do something different. What do I get to do differently? And it's kind of taking all of that knowledge we've all heard before, probably from different personal development, classes we've taken or things we've read in books of, if you keep doing the same things over and over, you're like just doing insane things and you're not actually making progress. And it's like, stop the pattern, pivot, and let's try something else. But it's creating an easy way to do that in very small incremental changes so that you're not creating these massive changes constantly year over year and doing things that may or may not make sense for the long term. So I want to share just my experience with this really quickly, because I for sure have some perfectionist mentality within me, and it does not always serve me, especially not in making weekly scorecards that I want to get 100% on every single week. The goal is to get 85%. That's what you want to aim for. And the first week I did this, I got a 33%. So not looking so high. But when I tracked it, I was like, okay, I know it's in the gap now, and I'm going to courageously take a stand for myself and say, what do I get to do differently next week so that I can get a higher score on the scorecard, right? And for me, that works, that resonates, because it's like I just get to keep showing up for myself and for what it is that I want to cause and create, and I'm aligning it back to that vision. And then from there, it's the next week I got a 64%. Cool, like that made me feel good, because now I'm only competing against myself. And that's how it is for all of us each and every day. So in seeing myself get a 64%, I was like, okay, it's not 85, but I'm cool with that. Like, I'm making progress. Now I'm seeing the results of the effort that I'm putting into it, and I'm allowing myself to be in this space of imperfection. And that's super important, because if we can allow ourselves to be honest about what it is that we're actually doing versus what we're not doing, then we can take action to pivot. So my experience so far has been really great. I've only been doing this for 2 weeks, so that's why I have 2 weeks worth of data, but I'm excited because it is giving me a way to really be super laser focused on what it is that I get to show up in every single day. So with that, that is everything from our workshop and preparation. I'd love to hear what your takeaways are and